Hello, I'm FPX Toy Cat, and not everything in Minecraft has to be centered, but it's confusing when it tries to be and then isn't, like for instance with this End City that Allref tweeted out saying that it wasn't perfectly centered, and you know what, even though he tweeted proof, I secretly didn't believe it. I was like, this is a funny troll, right? So I went to the End City myself. I knew it was a joke, I knew it was a prank, and I was going to prove it wrong, but as you can see, the way the End Cities work, they are very legitimately unevenly sided. If you look on the left-hand side, you can see there are 5 blocks between the edge and between the tower, and if you look on the right hand side you can see there are 6 blocks between the edge and the tower. This is kind of annoying that it's slightly off center on one of the axes, but if we look on the other side, do you know what you find out? You find out that it's exactly the same over there too. It is 6 blocks between the edge and the tower on this side, whereas on this side you can see that it's actually, wait, is this 7 blocks actually? You know what, never mind, it's 7 blocks on one side and 6 blocks on the other, which is even more confusing when you start to think about it. Anyway, with that said, that means that this is not only not a square building, but it has a circle, which is very deliberately slightly off center, and it makes you question, why is this? Surely this must be a mistake, but when you dive into it a little bit more, you can see how this has happened, not just in this one place, you can see it in multiple other places. Here's another tower that stacks wrongly onto something. You can even see how the pathways are 3 blocks wide and the doorways are 2 blocks wide, leading to them not even needing to have this evenly sized shaped building that has this on top of it. But the question is, why is this? And also, are there other places that Minecraft isn't centered that maybe you can show us to ruin our days? And the answer is yes. Ruining people's days is one of my favorite things to do. So let's go through that and explain the what, how, why, and how you can avoid this in your own builds, just in case you really want to. The reason this whole thing exists, I just briefly alluded to it right there, is because in Minecraft there's a very basic building rule. Every single person who's ever tried to build anything bigger than a simple house will know this, but there is an even number of blocks or an odd number of blocks that you can build things based off, and once you start doing that, everything else, if you want it to be centered, has to be based on an odd or even number. If you have an odd number of blocks in your square-based thing, then that basically means that you can center things by placing it in the middle. If you have an even number of blocks, then you have to have your middle be 2 blocks wide. So for instance, if you wanted to have 2 doors like, like this, because you like fancy, those 2 doors are both centered, or rather neither of them are centered, but together they make a center, and that's why, for instance, the End City, where they want to have a 2 block wide door, has to start with an even number of blocks tower, or an even number of blocks shape, and then when they go up to the tower, they go to an odd number of blocks, and you might say, oh, this is actually then good design, because the entrance and the end stone brick buildings, you could say, are very deliberately designed to be an even number of blocks, whereas the towers are designed to be an odd number. And this would make sense if it weren't for the fact that when they do reach the top, they do know how symmetry works, they do know it looks better, because this, even though it's made from end stone bricks, and it's the same rough structure as below, this one has a very clear center, and as you can see, they then went back to the 2 block wide things, even when they didn't need to, because they have these 3 block wide pathways. So again, you get these weird entrances that aren't centered in the slightest, and it makes you question, why did they do all of this? Why did they do any of this? Was it like a deliberate decision, or was it just maybe to annoy people the tiniest bit? And I don't think that either of those necessarily were the case. I think this genuinely is a very small oversight, and I wanted to talk about how we can avoid it in your own little builds. Also, just for what it's worth, in case this annoys you too, every one of these other sides has 2 bits of glass, and then the front side, for whatever reason, is just missing a second window. But we'll ignore that for now, and instead just say, hey, the easiest way to fix this is to have an odd number of blocks for your entrance. If you want to have a big wide entrance, you don't want it to be 1 block, you can just make it 3 blocks, and you can instead widen everything 1 more block. And so by just moving every block 1 to the right, you can see how very easily we've managed to make it so it's an odd number of blocks wide. There's a few things that are slightly different, like you can see the windows differently placed, but everything is still centered because they're based on the corners, and now we have a perfect center on which the tower rests perfect. Wait, actually, I could be, oh, we expanded it 1 block in the wrong direction. Okay, so since I went 1 block in the wrong direction, now I need to go 2 blocks back in the other direction. And so I'm going to move all of the left-hand side of this End City building 2 blocks to the left. Okay, and now just like that, we've made it a 5 block wide entrance. It's starting to look like a long End City. It looks surprisingly the same, right? The same features have been retained. It doesn't look like I've entirely altered anything because I just moved it a few blocks. But now if we look up here and we do that same maths, do you know what we're going to find out? I hope. Okay, this is 6 blocks plus a 7th. And then this is 6 blocks. And now with a brand new 7th, look at that. We have made it equal. There is now an End City where it is equally spaced left to right because it's an odd number of blocks for the base and an odd number of blocks for the tower. It's that simple, and it's relatively easy to do, actually. Except, actually, now it's still misbalanced in terms of left to right. Should we fix that too? If you're curious, the way I'm doing this is I'm just using a structure block to say where exactly the blocks are, and then we take that same structure we've just found, and we offset it by the relevant number of blocks. So if we want to be a block further back, we just load it, and now all of the blocks get pushed back 1 block precisely. So I didn't fix the problem, but instead what happened is this, a room filled with stairs, and I don't know where this came from. I think something broke, maybe. Where did these pillars come from too? I've got more questions that I'm asking than have been answered, but the point is that now we've centered the building around the tower, and boom, things are much better. Having an odd number of blocks and an even number of blocks is the solution to this crisis. And even the end as a whole, right? If we go back to the center of the world. So 0, 0 is exactly where the end portal is. This is the center of the end, and that's pretty much the only centered thing about the end. If you look around, you can see how there are 12 towers around here, or 10 towers around here. And as you can see, the 10 towers aren't perfectly circular and symmetrical and, whatever, that's fine. There are lots of different structures. Also, the end as a whole is a random end island that is so far away from being a circle. Look how much further it extends on this side versus on those sides. It's kind of wild and a little bit crazy, right? But even crazier than that, in my opinion, is because these are all different structures. It's all natural generation. It doesn't need to be symmetrical, but something that probably should is the humble igloo. So the igloo is a structure I want to give a break to because, it's only technically non-centered because of all the snow that falls in it. So, sure, we give it a small break on that angle. But it is a little weird when you go in here and you realize that, there's a redstone torch hanging off of nothing. Maybe it's hanging off the carpet. This doesn't make any sense, but if you look around here, it's like, yeah, there is an interesting little area right here. Wow, it's vaguely centered. But if you look on the outside, especially if you have one which has a basement, you can see how oh yeah, that doesn't follow the centering rule whatsoever. But again, it's fine. We don't want to go down the whole rabbit hole of what are igloo basements even meant to be? Why did someone set up a structure with zombies and villagers in their base? But if we look inside here, you can see oh yeah, this is a mess of deliberately non-centered. What is this carpet meant to be right here? Why are there random bits of carpet right there? Again, we don't question it too much. Because not everything in Minecraft needs to be centered, even if it feels like maybe it should. But the ultimate sin we can't forgive is that of desert temples. Desert temples were added in 1.3. That was a very, very long time ago now, more than halfway through Minecraft's history. Fun fact, wow. Don't you love fun facts of Toy Cat in these videos? But even despite that fact, there's something that has bugged me since the moment I found out about it, and I don't think most people know because most people have the same assumption as me, where you look around and you see, oh yeah, this is centered bounce. It's a really cool looking structure in my opinion, and then you find when you're looking around the back, kind of messing up the pyramid shape, there's usually this one little sandstone block right here, and one sandstone block. That must have spawned there because of the world. As you can see, the desert temple is otherwise perfectly smooth. Sometimes sand falls on it, and clearly that sandstone block must have generated on there via the same logic. Look at this one. It's mostly below the ground. It's probably just this one desert temple, right? But then you find another one, and it's fully uncovered, and you think, well, thank God, this one is going to be a logical pyramid shape like you expect. And then you look, and you see the same sandstone block. It's there again. Why is the same sandstone block chilling over here as well? Why? Why did they ruin the perfect shape with this one sandstone block? This is Bedrock developers, am I right? And then you realize it's been there in Java. Then you realize it's been there in Java since 1.3 when the Desert Temple came out. It's so clear that someone misplaced a block at some point. There's no aesthetical reason. There's no thing this is hinting at. Sure, if you break down here, you end up in a part of the Desert Temple, and maybe you can argue that's why it's there. It's there to indicate that you'll be mining through a pillar. No, there's no good reason why that's in there. Why is there a spare extra block? I think someone made a mistake all those years ago, and they're just too embarrassed to admit it, so everyone's been copying it, because obviously Bedrock has to port a lot of things from Java. You can see how on this side there's two sets of, doors. There's some that just go into 1 block wide, and then there's some that go behind them like this. On this side, all of the little doorways, if we pretend there's no breach here, you can see how all of the little things link together. Why are they so different? Why is it that on each side you get a very slightly different experience? It would make sense if there was some value to be found behind here. It makes sense if it was oh yeah, there's a hidden chest here sometimes, or there's sometimes a rare few blocks or something. But no, it just, the desert temple is a very, very, very beautiful structure that looks very symmetrical on the surface, and then it just isn't. So I know at this point in the video, I could just go through a bunch of other structures like trees and rocks and village buildings that aren't centered, even though they probably aren't meant to be, just because it's fun to go for the meme. But instead, I just want to give a little bit of appreciation for one of the structures that is perfectly centered and symmetrical. That's right, it's the sexy desert well. We rip on this structure far too often, but notice how on all four sides it looks the same. Notice how there is a center point that's exactly the same. Man, this is a structure we just do not appreciate, and I want to make this desert well appreciation moment. You know, I'm done with it already. So the other thing that's worth mentioning is that, you know, structures like dead bushes, pretty much any nature structure in Minecraft, you can see how, like, oh yeah, they follow a straight line just like how everything else does, except lots of things don't follow those same straight lines. Bamboo is the best example. So bamboo, which is really popular because once you get some bamboo, you can use it to make a table. And although I'd argue, is this really a table? But you know what, at the same time, Minecraft puts red carpet in igloos, so I can't blame you if you put carpet on top of a bamboo. It looks like more of a table than that igloo thing does. Anyway, so a lot of people do that, but the interesting thing about bamboo is they will never grow in the center of a block. They will always grow slightly off center, and the off-centeredness depends on your coordinates in the worlds, which means if I place 8 tables over here, or let's just say every other block is a table, just to keep things simple, or even just more simply, like, oh yeah, we put a carpet here, and a carpet here, and it's like, what is keeping this up? There is a real lack of centeredness, not just in terms of a lot of blocks, which, you know, maybe they can argue nature is never centered. But why is it that no matter how many times I try, the bamboo is always in the corner of this block, always in a different corner of this block, and always in a different place over here? Why is it so hard to get a centered bamboo? I just want to have a table. Man, that carpet is floating, huh? I just want to have a table, you know, in Minecraft that's centered. But in case that is your demand, I will tell you that getting things centered, you know, having these things be fixed, even though, like, I like to make, you know, like, sometimes I like to make, like, a PSA, like, hey, maybe Minecraft developers, if you're out there, you should check this out. But interestingly enough, you can't place carpets on dead bushes, even though you can place them on top of, yeah, very bizarre. But, you know, I usually like the PSA of, like, yeah, let's try and get this fixed. The truth is, Minecraft is not very good at fixing centering issues, and do you know how I know that? Do you know how I know the end city isn't going to be centered? Do you know how I know that random block in the desert temple is going to stay there forever? Or how the bamboo, there's never going to be a way to actually center this block, even though it's something a lot of people want, so that this doesn't become a thing? But the reason I know that that's a thing is because of the hotbar in Minecraft. So let's hop into survival, and let's pay attention to my hotbar, and notice how, like, oh yeah, first of all, not only is the experience not centered, like the XP bar goes slightly to the right of the hotbar, but not to the left. You know, it looks like the experience is not centered, either of the health bars, but what it is the hotbar is actually just a few pixels off. And I pointed this out in a video last year, pointing out that, like, oh, we checked previous versions. I checked my own gameplay from as early as 2017. The issue has been present as early as that. That's right, Minecraft Bedrock on all platforms, a game 100 million people play, developed by a multi-trillion-dollar corporation, has had an issue in their game for 3 years where the entire hotbar, a thing you literally can't remove except when you turn off your HUD, but 99.99% of players play with their display turned on, and that has been miscentered for over 3 years now, and it's still not been fixed. So, yeah, will this ever be fixed? No. And that is the reason why sometimes you need to take things into your own hands. And what does taking things into your own hands means? That's something you can work out for yourself. Personally, I like the mega wide end city solution. Like, I didn't think this would work in the slightest, but again, I genuinely do like it. With just a few blocks being moved around, it actually does work, except till you get to the top floor, where for some reason, inexplicably, there's just a bunch of stairs that I don't even know where they came from. But if we ignore those as being real, you know, if we just ignore the facts we don't like, this is a really solid solution. And yeah, playing around with things in Minecraft is a great idea. I personally like altering Minecraft structures. I have a lot of fun with it, and I recommend that if you want to do the same, you do that, because they're not going to center themselves. Because if we can't center a hotbar, how are we going to center an entire end city? And maybe that's a lesson to learn about society. Or maybe it's a lesson about how we're all doomed and there's nothing you can do anyway, because if we can't center an end city, how are we going to solve the systemic issues facing us as a society? But, you know what's way more fun? I hope you all enjoyed this video, and you know the one thing you can solve Is the problem that you're not subscribed? I see how 70-something% of you aren't subscribed, and I see how other YouTubers tell people to subscribe, and somehow that has a measurable impact. Wouldn't you like to prove that correct by subscribing to the channel? Oh, you wouldn't? Oh, this is a bad sales pitch, huh? Okay, thank you for watching. Hope you all enjoyed, because I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye.